Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the new Westman Atelier powder duos that just came out. I decided to pick mine up in the blush and bronzer duo or the contour duo, and just because the blush duos didn't really speak to me. So we have the Baby Cheeks plus Face Trace Sculpting Powder Duo. So there's three different options. There's a lighter option, a medium option, and a dark option. And then we have the Baby Cheeks Powder Blush Duo, which comes with two different duos in a powder blush formula. And the duos have two different tones in them. And again, I really wish what she did with this release was that you could pick the colors and that these were refillable, because I think that would have just given us such a nice alternative where we could have had picks that we wanted. Just because in the blush duos, I really liked one of the shades, but then the blush duo, the other tone that they had, I didn't love the other color. So I thought the best bet would be to get one of the contour powders and then one of the blush powders as well, just because I am very curious about this formulation. I will say I was very, very surprised by the price. I guess for some reason I thought these would be a little bit less money, but these were 105 Canadian dollars, which I think is very pricey. With tax, it cost me $127, which I think is a lot of money. I was going to wait for the Sephora VIB sale, but you guys really wanted to see a review for the Sephora VIB sale, and I really wanted to be able to test these out. So I did test these yesterday, so this is my second day of testing. I don't like to do first impressions. I don't find first impressions helpful, so I did want to get some testing done before I did a review on these, but I did want to review these before the sale because I know a lot of you guys are planning to pick these up. So I picked up the Baby Cheeks plus Face Trace Sculpting Powder Duo in the Petal and Biscuit. Each product contains 0.17 ounce each of powder product, and it comes in this like dusty pink powder packaging. It feels like it's tin packaging. It does feel heavy. However, I don't feel like the packaging feels as luxe as some of her other packaging does. For some reason, I just thought the packaging was going to be a little bit nicer than this. Like, it's just, I guess it is sleek. It's a nice dusty pink color, but it's just so plain. And I would have liked to see something a little bit more special, especially for the price. Like $105 is very expensive. I believe in the US it's $85. So again, still very pricey. And I just would have liked to see something maybe a little bit more luxe. Like, again, it feels heavy, it feels weighty, but yeah, I don't know. The shade Petal is this really nice dusty pink color. And I will say the formula, when you run your fingers through it, it is very nice. It feels very silky soft. And if you can't tell, that one swatch of color, it's going to give you light pigmentation right initially off the bat. It looks very intense in the pigmentation. So I will give you a close-up of the packaging, but I feel like the shades, how they look in the packaging, it actually looks like they're going to be a lot deeper than they appear on swatches. So they are very buildable. So I'm going to just give you some swatches. And I will say they don't swatch the best. And I think that is because they are a little bit of sheer in pigmentation, but they don't swatch the best. They don't actually look that nice in swatches. They look a little bit patchy. So here we have the Petal shade, which is this really beautiful dusty pink shade. And then we have the contour shade, which is the shade Biscuit, which is this really nice neutral brown. It does definitely lean cool, especially on my skin tone. I think that that is a cool shade, but you can see they don't swatch the best. So to me, they do perform better on the skin. But I'm just going to get started on the complexion, and I'm just going to use some products on my skin before we move in with these. So today I'm going to go in with the Chantecaille Cushion Foundation. This is the Future Skin Cushion Skincare Foundation in the shade Nude. And what I like to do is I will just get product out, like I'll take my fingertip in this product and I'm going to apply it to the palm of my hand. And then as always, I do like to pick up that product with the brush on the palm of my hand, get it evenly distributed into the bristles. And then I'm just going to apply onto my skin. This Chantecaille cushion does have really good coverage. I would say it's a straight up medium coverage initially. So I like to go in with just a really small amount of product. And I like to really shear it out onto the skin. I'm someone that doesn't really like a lot of coverage on my complexion. I like a light coverage, at maximum a medium coverage. So I'm just going to really work on shearing this out. I do have the Rhode Glazing Milk on, kind of as a primer product. Not really. I guess I have it on as my moisturizer for the day. So because that has a nice hydration, it is going to allow me to really shear this out on the complexion. I'm really stretching out this foundation onto my skin. Taking the Westman Atelier Vital Skincare Concealer in the shade M1. M2 is actually a better match for me, but I just picked up the lighter shade. I'm just going to apply a little bit under my eyes. I'm just applying a little bit to my under eyes where I'm the darkest, so kind of where I have the most blue tones, and then I'm going to blend that out with a BK Beauty N16 brush. I really like how this brush shears out that product. It's not going to leave, like a lot of denser brushes will leave a lot of coverage behind, but this brush really shears out this concealer really nicely. I do really enjoy this Westman Atelier concealer. It's one of my favorite products from her, actually. And I really like it because it has a really good amount of coverage, but it doesn't look makeup-y or heavy on the skin. It actually looks pretty nice. Not no makeup. It doesn't look completely natural on the skin, but it looks very good for a fuller coverage concealer. And I really like it because it has a thicker consistency to it. And those thicker consistency concealers, they really perform well on drier under eyes, or if you have lines, well, everyone has lines on their under eye region, but sometimes with thinner serum consistency concealers, those thin consistency concealers will just, the concealer kind of just soaks right into the lines and it will emphasize lines, where this almost smooths out any lines because of that thick texture. It almost just adds that like hydration to those under eyes and makes that area look really plump on the skin and just very healthy. This has a little bit of a light reflecting property, so it's not a completely matte concealer, but it does have a really nice dry down to it, so you're not going to require powder. Powder is just an optional step. I'm just going to run that excess concealer along the eyelids as well, just to kind of conceal that area too. I can be a little dark in that area. I'm going to add a little bit of a lip color. I'm going to add this Merit Signature Lightweight Lipstick in the shade Baby, just to add a little bit of color to my lips. And I feel like this is going to pair really well with the Petal blush. I just like to do my lips before my cheeks sometimes. I really like this Chantecaille cheek product. It is very blurring on the complexion, and I love a blurring foundation. I always forget about it. It has a really natural finish, this foundation does, and I thought that would be perfect because I don't want anything that's too dewy or too matte, because I think that will take away from the blush and contour, and I want the contour and the blush to have a really, I want it to perform the best, so I feel like doing something on a really natural finish foundation is going to lead to the best performance. So that is why I decided on that foundation. I just want something with a completely natural finish that I don't necessarily have to powder down. This contour and blush duo, like I said, it can look a little bit intimidating because these colors look quite deep in the pan. And I was a little bit scared when I first tried this. So first on the complexion, I think the first thing I would do is I would add a little bit of contour. I'm not someone that normally contours on an everyday basis, but if I were going to contour, I would take something like this BK Beauty Angie Hot and Flashy blush. This brush, it's the A507, and I'm just going to dip a little bit of product. So with contour, you want to be very light-handed. I would not use this as a bronzer on myself personally because it's just a little bit too cool toned as a bronzer. So I'm going to apply it to the very, very high points of my face where I want a little bit of sculpting. So maybe not necessarily to the high points of my face, but where I want to add definition to my face, that's where you add a contour, is where you want to define, versus where you want to bronze. That would be more, I guess, the high points of your face and where you want to add life versus definition. So I'm going to take a little bit on the tip of that brush and add a little bit to the nose as well, just like to the sides. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that, again, just on the edge of this brush here. And I'm going to add a little bit under my lip because I like to add a little bit of definition there. And then again, I'm going back in very softly and I'm just going to add a bit of contour right to my cheekbone. So you can kind of feel your cheekbone right there. And I'm going to add, and I'm not really adding product to the whole powder here. I'm almost adding it to the side so that I can add that sculpting just right underneath the cheekbone. And then you always want to kind of blend your contour up a little bit. And I am going to warm up my face a little bit as well, just because I am someone, I don't want to just contour my face. I think it's more flattering on my complexion to add that structure in and then add life with a bronzer. So I'm going to just sculpt the face. So I think this is a really beautiful tone. I'm going a little bit heavier handed than I normally would because I want you guys to be able to see this. I'm going to take a little bit on my eyelids as well. And I like to kind of sweep that upwards into the temple. Just to, again, define in those areas. But that added a really nice structure to my cheekbones. And it's very easy to blend. It's a very nice pigmentation level because it's going to add that definition, but it's very, very sheer. So if you have a deeper complexion, you can build it up on the skin, but you're not gonna get a really intensely pigmented look. So you can really build this up on the complexion, but you're not going to get a really intense look. I really do like this formula. It's really nice. I really like that sheer formula. So you can see it added that structure to my cheeks, but I kind of look a little bit dead. And I am someone that just looks better with a bronzing product as well as a contour, I guess, if I was going to. Again, I'm not someone that contours on an everyday basis, but I do think it is nice to have in your routine if you want to add structure to your cheekbones. So I'm going to go in with a bronzer as well, and I'm going to take my Hermes bronzer just because that's my favorite bronzer, and I'm just going to take it on a Refer 22, and I'm going to pick up some product, and I'm going to warm up the face ever so slightly. So I'm going to keep this in a more generous area, so just a little bit underneath that contour, just a little bit below the hairline, and then I'm applying this literally on top of my cheekbones, right on top of that contour, and I'm applying this across the nose instead of vertically down my nose. I'm just applying this higher up on my cheeks, again, to add life to my complexion. So to me, that contour looks so much better with some bronze added, and I wanted to kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So right here, we have the Westman Atelier Biscuit shade and the contour powder. So this is a really nice cool tone shade. Right beside it, we have the Hermes bronzer. So you can see how much lighter and warmer tone that is. So both of these are sheer products and they're very buildable, but you can see the Hermes is much warmer on the complexion. So that's gonna work as a beautiful bronzer on me. And then this shade right beside it is the Dior bronzer, the new bronzer, in the shade 02 Light Warm, I believe. It's in the Glow version. Right here, I wanted to compare that to the Victoria Beckham Contour Duo. So we have the Contour Duo here in the shade 1. So it's the lightest shade. Sorry, it's 01. So we have the contour side. So you can see that is even still, it's warmer and has a little bit more pink to it, where this Westman Atelier is just quite cool toned. It does have like gray tones to it, and it doesn't have like the pinkness that the Victoria Beckham does. And then this is the Westman Atelier, the Soleil, what are they called? The liquid bronzer drops in the shade Soleil Parfait. And this is very similar to her Biscuit shade in the contour, the cream contour. And I'm so sorry I don't have that shade, but I would say they're very comparable. This bronzing, the liquid bronzer, is just a little bit warmer on the complexion. So it's just slightly warmer tone than this contour powder is here. But they are very comparable. They're the most comparable out of all the products that I swatched, but I would definitely be using this on my complexion as a contour versus a bronzer. For me, it just performs better that way, but you could try it out as a bronzer. So let's just go in with this BK Beauty 104 brush, and I'm just going to apply a little bit of this powder, and I'll apply it as a bronzer. So I'll just go in lightly over top where I've applied that Hermes bronzer, just to give a little bit more, because I'm sure some of you are wondering how it will actually look on the skin as a bronzer. And I think it does look nice. I just think it looks a little bit cool toned on me as a bronzing product, but it's not terrible. Like, it still looks okay. I just prefer it as an actual contour. And then I wanted to swatch the Petal shade on my hand and compare it to some of my favorite blush shades. So this is a matte powder blush. There is no sheen to this at all. It is completely matte. And there is the shade Petal. So it is sheer in pigment, but you can really build it up, and you can build it up to this pigmentation, which you can see is quite vivid, but it's also quite a cool tone pink on my skin, and especially in comparison to some other neutral nude pinks that I have in my collection. So right beside it, sorry, I have to remember here, right beside it, we have the new YSL powder blush in the shade Rose Haze, which is a really nice neutral nude pink. It's like the perfect peachy pink nude, but leans a little bit more pink. So you can see in comparison, it's a little bit more peachy tone. So then here we have the NARS Behave Blush, and I thought that would be a good comparison, but you can see the Westman Atelier is more intense in pigmentation. Like I said, okay, it's vivid in pigmentation, but it is very buildable. Like it starts off with that sheer pigmentation and it is buildable, but it is vivid in comparison to all these swatches. So with the NARS one in comparison is definitely more subdued and is a more beigey toned in comparison. So I would say these here are more of that perfect combo of like a peach, pink, beige, where this one is just a very cool tone pink shade and definitely has those more pink tones, pink and beige, versus there's no peach to this at all. And then right here is the Valentino blush in the shade 9. And that's, again, more subdued and is definitely more peachy in shade, more of a nude shade in comparison to the Westman Atelier here. And then right here, we have the Lawless blush in the shade Vintage Rose. Sorry, the shade name is Vintage Love from Lawless, and the Lawless is definitely actually, it's pinky in comparison. It's like this more vibrant pink, where the Westman Atelier is more of that like subdued pink. It has that more cool tone, where this Lawless one is more vivid of a pink tone. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply it to the cheeks. So I hope those comparisons were helpful, but I'm going to take a Rephr 05 brush and I'm going to go into the Petal shade. I'm going to dip it in a few times. I'm going to tap off the excess, and as always, I get off that excess product on the back of my hand, and I'm going to slowly apply this where I've applied that powder bronzer, and just add a little bit of color here. And you can see it is very sheerly applying onto my skin, so it is very buildable, even though it looks intense when you swatch it. Again, the swatches just don't really show off how beautiful this formula is. This is a very silky smooth, very finely milled formula. It's very flattering for a matte. It's not a flat matte. It's not powdery on the skin. It's not boring on the skin. It gives your skin beautiful life, and it's not chalky at all. It's a very, very beautiful, beautiful blush formula. It's almost blurring on the skin. It applies very easily, very easy to blend. I'm going to apply that kind of to the forehead, across the nose as well, so the skin looks a little bit more natural. It's really, really pretty on the skin. I really do like this formulation. I'm just going to build it up a little bit more because I want you to see how intense it can get. If you are someone that just likes a lot of blush on your skin, you can definitely build this up. And then as a final touch on the eyes, I'm going to add a little bit of this Westman Atelier I Want You mascara in the shade Brown. And I'm going to apply it just to the base of my lashes, like barely applying any mascara. So I'm just going to leave the makeup as is here. And I do have to say, as expensive as this product is, I do really like this formulation. I really think this formula is really beautiful. I do like this powder duo, but I don't know how much use I'm going to get out of it just because I do not contour on an everyday basis. But I will probably use this as in eyeshadow looks, especially if I need to cool down a look. This is a great way to just add a little bit of shadow to the eyes. It's a great multi-purpose product that way. And I do really think this blush formula is beautiful, and I really like this color. As you can see, I'm just a fan of these pinky nude tones like this in my collection, clearly, as you could tell from the swatches. It's very similar to like my NARS Behave blush. I would say the formulation is very similar. They're both talc-free formulas. They're both very silky. I don't know if I had to pick one. I do really like the color of this. I like that I have a nice variety because this NARS one is definitely more on the neutral, lighter, peachy beige side, where this one's definitely cooler toned and a little bit more intense. So I do really like that, and I do really like this formulation of this contour powder. I'm going to go over the formulation. So Westman Atelier says, curated blush pairings give cheeks authentic dimension. Use the deeper shade to create realistic depth and the lighter for a pop of joyful color. The microfilled formula packs vibrant pigments and plant-derived squalene into a whisper light powder with a uniquely supple finish. Seamlessly blendable and easily layerable, this cheek duo wears like a second skin and delivers lasting streak-free payoff. So I will say it is definitely streak-free. It blends very easily into the skin. This is a really nice pairing because, again, you can use the deeper shade to create realistic depth, and I do think it is very realistic depth. This is the perfect contour tone for my skin tone. It is that perfect neutral to cool tone, but it's not cool tone where it's actually gray. So I do like that this contour shade is a realistic contour shade. There are no gray tones, and my skin, when I add depth to it, it doesn't actually have gray. It's just this nice beige tone that leans on the cooler side. It's not super gray, like I stated. So this is a very realistic contour shade. And I do really like this micro milled formulation that she describes. Like, it is very soft and creamy. You can tell this formulation is incredibly finely milled, very smooth and very buttery. And I like that you get that vibrant pack of color, but it is so buildable on the skin. You can get that sheer pigmentation, but you can also get this more intense color payoff like you can see on my cheeks here. I do think this color story is very flattering on my complexion. Keep in mind, I have a light to medium skin tone, so if you're lighter than me, I think this is going to work really beautifully for fair skin tones. If you have a cool skin tone, actually, if you have a cool skin tone, this will be really nice because I feel like you could use this contour as a hybrid product. You could maybe even use it as a bronzer because, like I said, it's not so cool tone. So that could be really nice for a variety of different looks. I like that I can use this as an eyeshadow in my eyes if I want to create a little bit of shadow as well. I do really like this formulation. I just don't know how often I'm going to be using these together because, like I stated, I don't contour on an everyday basis, but I do really like this formulation. I wish they were available, like I said, in refillable pans where we could interchange these so we could have our choice of what colors that we wanted in these. I think that would have just taken this above and beyond, and it would have been worth the $105 to me. I just find it hard to say it's totally worth that because what if you get a color that you really like, but then a color you're not so sure about? That's the only thing that's making me iffy on this, but I do really like this formula. And again, it says it's seamlessly blendable, which I totally agree. This blends like a dream into the skin, very easily layerable. Like you saw, I could really build it up on my skin tone. It's very layerable on the skin. You can shear it out. You can build it up to get more pigmentation. But even when you build it up on the skin, it's not ever looking heavy and it's not ever looking patchy. And it also says that this wears like a second skin. And I agree. I think this does look very second skin-like for a matte powder blush formula. This does really blend into the skin really seamlessly, very nicely. It doesn't look heavy. It doesn't look powdery on the skin, doesn't look chalky. And then the last claim is that it delivers lasting streak-free payoff. And I agree because when I wore this yesterday, it had really great longevity to it. So I'm very impressed with this all around. And I think it would be worth it to get at the Sephora sale. Maybe don't pay full price for this, but I definitely do really like this. I just don't know how often I'm going to use this. So I'm going to encourage you guys to keep coming back to my channel and seeing if this will make it into favorites. I do really like how this contour looks though, and I think it's very believable for an everyday, even like light makeup look like I have on today. So I am curious if I will start using contour more in my everyday routine. Maybe this will encourage me to use it more on a daily basis because I really like the structure and definition it gave my face. I don't think it's too heavy. I don't think it's too makeup-y. I don't think it's too much. I really, really actually like this look. So I'm really happy with this and think it's a really beautiful formula. So please let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all my current subscribers. Like this video if you like it, and I'll see you in my next video.